Now we're going to actually talk about how we can calculate the circumference or the area of a circle. So you should have just seen this nice little graphic that actually shows us our formulas for circumference and area. So you can remember circumference is cherry pie is delicious. So C is equal to pi times D. That's one way to remember circumference. We could also have that circumference is equal to 2 pi r. Now that would be 2 times pi times the radius. Because remember, 2 radii is 1 diameter. And so you can use either one of these in order to calculate circumference. Also, after that activity we just did, you are finding the ratio of the circumference to the diameter. So you were doing C over D. You should have discovered this roughly gave you pi. And remember that pi is an approximation. It's about 3.14 and it keeps going. That is an irrational number. The reason it is an irrational number is because that number goes on and on and on and on forever, and it has no pattern. So that number never stops. It just keeps going. And that's why there's sometimes the pi memorization contest to see how many digits of pi you can memorize. All right, we can also talk about area. So one way that you can remember for area is apple pies are 2. So area equals the pi times the radius squared. So it might be more standard, see it like this. So area is equal to pi and then times the radius squared. So we have an exponent there. All right, so for notes, you need to make sure that you have a calculator handy here. What we're going to do is for each problem, we're going to state whether we are solving for circumference or area and then calculate the unknown measurement. We're going to use 3.14 for pi. Over here on the side, since this is our new curriculum, we can see it gives us a couple of little hints. So remember, the circumference of a circle is the distance around the circle, while the area of a circle is the amount of space contained inside of the circle. So think about whenever we did like area of like a square or something like that, it's everything on the inside. That's the same thing for a circle. And then we have our formulas here. So we have the circumference equals pi d. Remember, the cherry pie is delicious. Or we can do it as 2 pi r because they're two radii form the diameter. Or we have our area one. So remember, area is equal to pi r squared. Or you can think about apple pies are 2 for our area formula. Okay, so number 1, a city park has a large circular garden with a path around it. The diameter of the garden is 60 feet. Gina likes to walk along the circular path during her lunch breaks. How far does Gina walk when she completes 1 rotation around the path? So if we had our circle here, Gina is walking around the circle. So if she's walking around the circle, that means that we are going to be finding the circumference. So we are going to be finding the circumference. It gave us some key information. It said that the diameter of the garden is 60 feet. So now we're going to plug it into our formula. So we have C equals pi d. Pi times the diameter. We know that d equals 60 feet. So let's plug it in. And remember, it said to use 3.14 for pi. So we have circumference is equal to 3.14 times the diameter, which is 60. So this here is where you can use your calculators today. So go ahead and type in your calculator, 3.14 times 60, and then we get 100, so the circumference is equal to 188.4. And since we're talking about real world situation, we need to label it. And circumference, we're talking about just the distance around. So if we're just walking, that would be like feet. It's like the perimeter. So it's just going to be feet, not feet squared or feet cubed. So that means Gina would walk 188.4 feet around in order to walk. All right, part B. Jason works for the city park department. He needs to spread plant food all over the garden. What is the area of the park he will cover with plant food? Well, that right there just told us we are solving for area. Because if we think about this circle, we are covering it. So everything on the inside, that is talking about area. So our area formula is equal to pi times the radius squared. But it gave us the diameter. The diameter is 60 feet, but we know that the radius is half the diameter. So that means that the radius has to be 30 feet. Now we just plug it in. So our area is equal to pi, which is 3.14, just the approximation, and then times the radius, which is 30 squared. Following our order of operations, exponents comes before we multiply. So 30 squared, that is the same as if we do 30 times 30. Remember, exponents are repeated multiplication. So if we take our calculator, 30 times 30, and we would get 900. So we have the area is equal to 3.14 times 900, and now we multiply it by pi, so times 3.14, and we get our area is equal to 2,826, my apologies. And since we were talking about area, that is going to be feet squared, because we're talking about everything on the inside of the shape. So anytime we do area, remember our units are always squared. All right, number 2. Samantha is making a vegetable pizza. First, she presses the dough so that it fills a circular pan with a 16-inch diameter and then covers it with sauce. What is the area of the pizza Samantha will cover with sauce? Well, if we had a pizza here and we are spreading sauce all over it, that means we are finding the area because we're finding everything on the inside. So our area formula is equal to pi times the radius squared. It said we have a 16-inch diameter, but for our area formula, we need the radius. So we know the diameter is 16, so the radius is half of that. So that means it is 8. So let's plug it in. So area is equal to pi times the radius, which is 8 squared. Now we have 8 squared, that's the same as 8 times 8, which is 64. So we have area is equal to 3.14 times 64. So if we get our calculator here, 3.14 times 64, that is equal to 200.96 and then inches squared. And that is how much sauce would be required to make that pizza. Last but not least, number 3. Members of a community center want to paint a large circular mural in the middle of the parking lot. The radius of the mural needs to be 11 yards. Before they begin painting the mural, they use a rope to form the outline. How much rope will they need? Well, right here it says they need it to form the outline. If we are talking about a circle, and we're talking about the outline of the circle, that means we're talking about the distance around that circle. So that means we are talking about circumference, the distance around the circle. So remember, circumference is equal to pi d, or we can use 2 pi r. It tells us our radius is 11 yards. So since it gave us our radius this time around, I'm going to use this second formula here. So our radius is equal to 11. So circumference is equal to 2 times pi, which is 3.14, times the radius of 11. And now we just multiply it out. So we have 2 times 3.14 times 11, and that gives us the circumference is equal to 69.08, and then it's perimeter, so that means it's just going to be regular yards. And there we have it, circumference and area of a circle.